I love the idea of you've got to get clean before you get dirty. And when you talk about organization, one of the commitments that I've made this year that I talked to Ken about just last night is I am getting rid of every single material thing in my life that doesn't bring value.
Mm-hmm.
Every single thing in this house that I won't touch his things, and I told him that. I was like, but every single thing that's not bringing value to my life that I can give to somebody else and bring value to their life is going, because I will not be tied down with managing stuff, because I have so much more life to live and to give to others. I'm not going to let any material things tie me down. So
I love that.
About it.
So you got to get clean before you get dirty.
Yes. Here we are again. I'm glad to be with you.
Yeah, so I'm excited to bring this topic to you, and I'll give you a little background how I came about it. Probably a podcast or two ago, we mentioned that we had a race that was going to happen. And unfortunately, you were feeling a little under the weather. And the one thing about you is you're very in tune to what's going on in your body, and you knew what you should do and shouldn't do. So at the last minute, you let me know that you were going to be unable to run this race with me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so I had to quickly adapt and adjust, because that meant that I was going to be in the woods by myself for a long period of time. And so I started trying to think, what was I going to listen to?
Mm-hmm.
Typically, I'm not a music listener when it comes to exercising. I get too much in my head. Like, even if I'm listening to really great music, I start thinking about how my knee hurts and my toe keeps crossing the other toe, and how, I just go through these, how I check my body, but it's not positive talk that happens. So I would just prefer to tune into some listening material that I can be entertained by, I can think about, lose myself in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the night before. I'm trying to figure out, what am I going to listen to tomorrow? Because I'm going to be in the woods by myself for somewhere between 3 and 4 hours, depending on how muddy it is and stuff. So my stepmother said to me, you need to listen to Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights. And she'd mentioned it to me before, because she was just so interested in him, his
Mm-hmm.
thought processes, his behavior. And let's be honest, like, he's pretty easy to listen to, like, as far as his voice goes. So she had mentioned to me a couple times, but I don't listen to books. So I really, although she had recommended it, I hadn't jumped on it. So I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to download the book Green Lights and listen to that on my run. And I was entertained the whole entire time.
I love it.
Have you, no, I think you've heard him on a podcast before, but have you listened to his book yet? Okay, so
His book?
Yeah, have you read it?
I have read a lot of it. I've heard a lot of it before.
Okay.
I've listened to a number of things by him. And on our last race we did, he was one of the people I listened to on my legs of the race. And so I've heard a lot of the stories I've already read in here.
Okay, well,
it's so funny you bring that up, because I do have it now. Look at the cover. Okay, can you guys see this cover? Do you see
that is a good
book
cover.
jacket? Well, was it made this way?
Oh, yeah,
It's
short.
not the same size as the book.
Hey, but
isn't that bizarre?
I think that's what makes it unique.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things about that book jacket that draw you in, right? I mean, he's a decent looking man, and he looks like he's thinking very intently on it. I mean, I would pick that book up just in general if I was going through a bookstore, just to kind of see what it was about.
So I sent one time to my small group girls his 3 minutes, I think, message in a nutshell about you create your own destiny, don't be a victim. And there were like 5 different life lessons he gave in that time. And my middle daughter listens to that regularly. She just told me recently when she was looking for her senior quote, she was looking at all these funny ones and had submitted them. And then the teacher said, no, this has to be a real quote by a famous person. Because one of them was from my niece who is 7 years old, or 8. And she was like, no, it has to be by a real person who's famous. And she chose one of his quotes. She said, I listened, and I said, I'm surprised you remember that. She goes, Mom, I listened to that speech a lot.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. It's really good. And his book is really, really good. Now, I don't know that I don't know. My college-age daughter, I would probably pass it on to. But, I mean, there's a little bit of raunch in there. I mean, I had a little bit of a yikes, listening to a couple different parts. And so here's another before I get into the actual topic. So one of the things afterwards my stepmom had a conversation about, because I have finished it, and she's listening to it again for the second time. She spends a lot of time in the car, and there were certain things he said that she couldn't remember exactly.
Yeah.
He talks sometimes, some of his writing is like Dr. Seuss, so it's so entertaining to listen to. But I said to her,
Dr. Seuss.
Yes, it's very Dr. Seuss. I said, I would like to sit down and have dinner with him like one time, but I don't think that overall, if he wasn't Matthew McConaughey, right? I don't think that I would feel comfortable being friends with him.
Why?
Okay, so I've had a couple people like him in my life he's a hustler. So, and sometimes that means lying in order to get your way. And so if I was hanging out with someone and they were using techniques to lie in order to get their way, it would make me extremely uncomfortable. So some of the stories he tells in the book, I don't want to spoil it for people but he was raised to do what it takes to get what you want. You just don't get caught. That's the overall way that his parents raised him. And it pushes the boundaries of my, it would push the boundaries of my, I'm kind of a rule follower, but I also have certain values of honesty that I would really struggle if he was my buddy. So it's more like I can do a dinner with him, but as far as hanging with him, I think that it wouldn't be a good match for me. I'd love to have conversations, but I don't think that I would want him as like my ride or die buddy, because I would be uncomfortable, and then maybe I would be swayed to be doing some things that would also be outside of my comfort zone.
No, I get that.
So therefore, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so he goes through, and I know that one of our last podcast was called Bumper Stickers, but that's one of the things throughout this book that he talks about, loving bumper stickers, and then tells different sayings, like different, like each chapter has like a stop his story and add a saying in there. And I don't know if this story is actually a bumper sticker or it's a Matthew McConaughey quote, but it came from his book. But when he said it, out of all of the things he said, which there was a lot of really great stuff.
Yeah.
This one was in the very beginning. I'd say the first hour of the podcast, that he said this one, and I kept saying it in my head. And I kept thinking about it and thinking about it and saying it and thinking about it. And I thought, man, this one is so true. So I wanted to go ahead and tell you this bumper sticker, and then I wanted to go ahead and go forward with this topic. So the bumper sticker was, you got to get clean before you can get dirty. So because I was running in the woods at the time, first off, and it was muddy. I mean, super muddy. I was puddle hopping all over the place. It was a trail run, and it was beautiful, but it was muddy. And if you would have stopped and looked at me afterwards, I even took a picture of my feet when I was done with the run, I was filthy. But from the very beginning, when I heard that quote, you got to get clean before you get dirty, I said out loud, man, isn't that true, is what I said. And then I thought, well, okay, Nicole, what does that mean? Like, let's dig into that. And because I was in the mud at the time, I started thinking about my health journey. for example. There's no way I would be able to do 15 and a half miles in the wood on a Sunday if I wouldn't have gotten clean first. And the joy that I find in being outdoors, being able to move is amazing and powerful. And I thought to myself, I never would have been able to do that if I wouldn't have gotten myself right and paid attention, got my diet clean, got a good exercise routine, and really focused in. And then I thought, okay, how often is that? So the word dirty sounds, maybe has a negative connotation, but that's not how I took it in this quote. I almost thought that's where the fun starts, right? Because me running in the woods, that was fun. I know not every person would think so, but let's just represent dirty as joyous, prosperous, amazing time that you just, like freedom almost. So I started thinking of different areas. You got to get clean before you get dirty. So I brought up the first one as far as health, like getting your health under control so that you have freedom to go out and do things that are fun and joyful without the restrictions of pain, without the restrictions of exhaustion, without the restrictions of breaking down. Financial peace. You got to get clean before you get dirty, before you're able to spend your money in a way that is not burdensome. You have to get your finances under control. Spirituality. You got to get clean before you get dirty. Now, again, I'm not using dirty as a negative connotation, but getting right with the Lord, finding the Lord, letting go of the burdens, letting Him take the burdens, being able to be saved. So then you get to go out and live a free life without feeling bogged down. Relationships, your marriage, like getting things right with your spouse, getting it clean, so that then you can just really enjoy years of marriage. And organization, like being able to get your space, your living space under control, so that when you walk in, you are not feeling exhausted by just looking at the area around you. You're able to have fun and not be burdened by the things you're not doing because you're in clutter. You got to get clean before you get dirty. I don't know. I feel like that statement, it called out to me. So that's kind of where I thought that I wanted to talk about. I guess I don't even have an actual question, but So what do you think? You got to get clean before you get dirty.
So when I heard that, I thought dirty like you get down and dirty, you're getting to work, you're rolling up your sleeves and you are getting to work on something, is the way when I first heard that quote. And I think everything you're talking about relates to that. Like, before you start any big project or any undertaking or any task, you have to get clean in your thoughts, get clean in your action, get clean in your plan in order to really dig in and make it happen. That's the thing about his quotes, and this is why my husband doesn't like him, actually. He says, I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast at his recommendation, and he said, your guy was on Joe Rogan. And I was like, who? And I named all these people, and he was like, no, Matthew McConaughey. And I was like, oh, he's not my guy. And then I said, well, what did you think? And he was like, he just gives like a bunch of one-liners. Like the entire interview was just a bunch of one-liners. I think it was 2 hours. It was long. I didn't take it as a bunch of one-liners, but that you've got to get clean before you get dirty. I think you can take it a lot of different ways. I like how you took it to have, like, dirty was the equivalent of fun and freedom and playfulness.
I think that's one of the things, that word playfulness is one that I tried to think of that attached to a lot of them.
Yeah.
Playfulness in doing things like running in the woods. Playfulness with your money, like being able to take a really fun dream vacation or buy a really fun gift for someone.
If you take the time on the front end to establish boundaries, to establish systems, then you're setting yourself up in the future to be successful and have more freedom. And I think finances are one of the easiest ways to see that. What do you want each stage of your life to look like? And do you want to have the freedom to travel and pursue interest and hobbies, even careers that you want to pursue? Or are you content in staying in a job that you have to stay in to get a paycheck week to week? And I'm not putting that down. Like, I have known somebody that was so systematic in his ways of doing things. He was like a robot. He had no aspirations to travel. He just liked his daily routine, and he didn't want to change it. It was this guy that used to work for me, and it was fascinating to me because I'm not wired that way. But even to where he put his lunchbox on the desk, like, everything was so systematic. And he may just want to do that, you know, until he retires and draws retirement or Social Security.
But what would throw him off? So
anything that.
So again, I bet when you say when we talk about organization of our home, like, I bet his home is pretty organized so that he doesn't have the overwhelm.
And he lives alone.
Because the things that where we get thrown off and we lose that freedom to have fun and joy, typically overwhelm is one of those things that robs us away. And all these different things that I talked about, also, you can see how overwhelm can rob you of your health, with your finances, just from being able to be right with the Lord. Your marriage, and then most of all, like, I think there's a lot of people that can relate to feeling overwhelmed with their living space, their home, their car, their bedroom, their closet, you know.
Yeah.
So okay, so here's where I want to go next with it, because my mind was still working while I was in the woods, and so I thought, if in my mind there's a truth to getting things right brings so much freedom, what is it that keeps people from getting things right?
Yeah, well, it requires change, and that's hard. It also requires looking at where you have just run amok, where you've just not been guarding that area, where you haven't set boundaries, and you have to discipline yourself in these areas too. And you have to see discipline and boundaries and systems as a benefit to your life and not a restriction of your life. When you see it that way, it changes it.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Because so what I was seeing is, as I was going through and processing all this, and I thought to myself, like, why wouldn't somebody want to get dirty? Why wouldn't they want to get clean so they could play? Like, to me, playing is fun, and you can have joy long term. Like, if you can get things clean, then you can play. What keeps you from getting things clean? The setting of the boundaries seems hard, burdensome. It doesn't seem like gifting yourself. It feels like a withdrawal of yourself.
It feels like you're having to sacrifice something you want, and you are, because you have to retrain yourself for what you want.
Yeah, I loved this quote because I thought to myself, and I've even said it in my house when I've wanted to pass an area and not complete something. And I literally said, Nicole, you got to get clean before you get dirty. Like, that was kind of where I went with it. And the funny thing is, when Matthew listens to this podcast, he'll be like, ladies, that's not what I meant. I know he's not going to listen to it, but the fact is that's not maybe where it went in his head, but that's one thing I love about all his different sayings is it really probably touches all of our heartstrings in different places.
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, so how can I help people understand that the fun is on the other side of getting clean? Like, if you have not been taking care of your health, yes, there's a sacrifice to get yourself clean. But the life on the other side is so worth it. And financially, if you are burdened with debt and the sacrifice of getting rid of that debt and getting your finances clean is worth long-term fun.
Yes.
In your marriage, sometimes digging deep hurts so bad. It is hard to work through that hard stuff. But on the other side, years of enjoyment. I mean, so I guess that's where I wanted to really think to myself, okay, I'm going to say this out loud because maybe there's a listener that thinks, yeah, I haven't attempted to get clean because it feels too hard, but I realize that the fun on the other side is I can help myself to move towards the joy, not actually move towards something hard. I'm actually trying to remove the burden so that I can feel joy in my life.
I love that. And I think you're right. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Like, you have to make the decision to do it. But there is a lot of guilt and shame that comes around facing those situations. And a lot of doubt, a lot of self-doubt of whether it can even get better, whether you really can change, especially if you've tried so many things over the past and then you kept self-sabotaging yourself. Or maybe you don't see it that way. Maybe you saw outside forces stopping you from reaching that goal. But you first have to believe that you can do it. And see yourself in that space. So if you can't ever see yourself being healthy enough, maybe not to do a long race, even to do a 5K. If you can't see yourself healthy enough to do that, you're not going to do it. Because you're not going to put in what it takes to do it. You're not going to do the running training. You're not going to change your eating habits. If you don't see yourself as being financially free, you're never going to pursue the steps to find out how to do it.
It's true.
And that's the first thing. You have to decide to see yourself that way. That's why vision boards are really cool. Put it up there. Years ago, we wanted a boat. Years and years ago. And we did not have the money to get a boat at the time. We didn't see how financially we could buy the boat that we wanted. But we figured out which boat we did want. And then I printed it out and I taped it to our window so that when you looked at the boat, you saw it in the water. That's where it was taped. And I was like, that's where it would be sitting, in the yard. And it took getting that vision in our hearts. And then one day, a boat show came up. We went to the boat show. It was in January. It was cold. It was rainy. Nobody was looking for boats because it was a cold, rainy day in January. And we were at the fairgrounds. And anyway, we got that boat for a steal. Brand new, custom the way we wanted. I still can't believe what we got that boat for. But it was within our budget, and we wouldn't have even gone to the boat show if we hadn't been planting that seed saying, yeah, we do want a boat. Yes, we can have a boat. Look at what the memories that our family's going to have. So the reason having a boat was even important to us was Ken was a game warden and worked on the lake all the time. And the girls were little. And so we didn't see him. And I thought, well, if we had a boat and could go out on the lake, you could come over and eat lunch with us. We could see you and visit with you some on the weekends. And that's exactly what happened. Once we got the boat, the girls and I would load up and we'd go out and have lunch or an early dinner, and they got to see him because otherwise they would have been asleep when he came home, and a lot of times he would be leaving before they got up. So we had so many blessings in that, but we had to see it.
And the other thing I love about vision boards is it's not impulsive. Like a vision board is something that you put something in front of you, and it's not like, okay, now today I'm going to go buy it. I'm going to charge it. It's it's a goal I'm working towards. How can I make this happen? And then you keep it in front of you, you work towards it, and it's something ultimately you don't want to give up on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So one of the other things to do is ask yourself why you want it. And that will help to solidify your desire to go after it. But you're going to choose your hard. You either choose it at the beginning or you choose it at the end. And usually the hard at the end comes with greater sacrifice than the hard at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's harder to reel in your finances when you're used to spending willy-nilly however you want to and then go to a budget. That's hard. That feels way more restrictive. But if you start off with a budget, you're used to working within those parameters. The same like you talked about with relationships. If in your marriage you've been used to doing whatever you want to, kind of living life separately, when you start having those conversations around how do we come together and really be a team after years and years and years of doing your own thing, it's harder. But if you start off from the beginning with that foundation that we're going to do this as a team, it's so much more rewarding. I was having a conversation with somebody last night, and we were talking about McKenna being engaged and pre-marriage counseling, and she said, it's a friend, not that McKenna would do pre-marriage counseling with her, just a friend. We were talking about life, and she said, pre-marriage counseling was good. It was good. I would recommend it. But I would even more strongly recommend going to a marriage counselor after your first year of marriage. And so then we started talking about, oh, yes, and what challenges did we face that first year? And then how could that have changed our lives if we had started that process early on, that you go to a marriage counselor for a check-in. Talk about those little things that are irritants that we didn't know that would grow into like a real issue. And so then it got us to the topic of, well, what if you were to set it up when you get married that it's an anniversary thing?
Oh.
Every year on the month of your anniversary,
wow,
you commit to going twice that month to see a marriage counselor. Or at some point, like the same person.
What if you did it every year?
You did it every single year as a check-in.
Oh my gosh, I love that idea.
Yeah. And that goes to this,
yes.
Like you're getting clean before
you can go out and
have fun, be playful, like you're
enjoy each other,
fully. And you're not carrying all this baggage throughout the years. Same thing. You got to get clean before you get dirty. You're going to choose your hard. You're going to choose your sacrifice. Early on, it may seem like a big sacrifice, but usually it's much greater if you put it off.
And if you don't choose to get clean, you just carry that hard. That hard just continues with you.
It's almost like if you don't choose to get clean, your dirty is determined for you, but it's not a fun dirty. It is a problematic dirty.
Yes.
You know? You don't get clean with your help. Down the road, you're not getting dirty from races and fun, healthy activities. You're getting dirty because you can't care for your body and somebody else has to.
And you're not caring well for the people around you because of it.
If you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of the people around you.
All right, so if you got to get clean before you get dirty. Is there something that comes to your mind when you hear that saying? We would love for you to go to the comments on the podcast, give us a rating, and go ahead and let us know what did that mean to you? You got to get clean before you get dirty. Thanks for tuning in today. If you would like to know more about our coaching business or get a hold of more of our podcasts, want to know what areas you can go ahead and plug into, please go to www.liveyourdesign.life. Until next time, have a great day.